Well, hello again. Pastor Ray Barnett here. Glad you could be with me on God's answers for anxiety and depression. Want to wish everybody a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you're watching this broadcast. I know it sounds like the same old song, but another beautiful day here in upstate New York. I'm amazed at I never cease to be amazed, let me say it that way, at the goodness of God. How the word I've been using is compensates us for our miseries. And I should qualify that by saying that God compensates the righteous. That may sound presumptuous on my part, but going by our new covenant, the Bible tells us that we who live in Christ, for Christ, are the righteousness of God. And with that being understood, God compensates the righteous in our miseries with something good if you will take the time to look for it. For me, this weather that we've been having has been fair compensation. And especially for me, I don't do well in the humidity. It brings out the worst in me. So you'll never find me living in one of these states where the humidity is always high and the heat is high. That combination doesn't work well for me. It was okay when I was younger, but not as I got older. But this is beautiful, really, really beautiful. Low humidity, sunshine, get to soak up a little of that vitamin D that we, at least here in upstate New York, we lack during the winter time. Winters can be a little bit long. Well, anyway, the thought is that God is good, and in the midst of our troubles, if we would just simply take the time to look for His goodness, you'll find it. In fact, just a quick story along these lines of natural beauty. Many, many years ago, I'm going back 50 years ago, I remember I was out on one of my runs, and I used to do quite a lot of running through Van Cortlandt Park, if you know where that is, if you're familiar with New York City. I told you on another broadcast that my front door was Yonkers, my back door was the Bronx, and there were trails. They have horse trails going through there. Van Cortlandt Park is the second largest small game preserve in the state, the Adirondacks being number one, 6 million acres. And oddly enough, Van Cortlandt Park, where I lived, is number 2. And I used to go out on these long runs through the woods. And, there's cross-country trails going through there, horse trails as well. And I remember one day this idea occurred to me. I was very, very young. I was in my early 20s. That old saying, you got to stop and smell the roses. So I was out on this run. And on my way back, and the last trail that I was on went literally right to my back door of the apartment house my family lived in. And I just decided to stop and literally look for, well, I'll just say flora and fauna. Wasn't many flowers along that path, and no roses, but a lot of, interesting plants and different things that I would run by every single day. I'd run by it going this way, south, and then I would pass it by again, coming north, back to my home. And so this day I just decided to stop my run, and I just began to appreciate God's nature. I'm going back over 50 years, probably 55 years ago, which is a frightening thought. But it goes to the same point that we have a lot of miseries. That's what well, I hate to put it that way, but that's what this show is about, right? Anxiety, depression, mental health disorders, and they're miserable. The symptoms are miserable. But if you take the time to at least slow down and look around, you'll see in nature a stability. Exceptions being when man touches it. But when man touches things, it's not always bad. For instance, I came here, I think it was 2 days ago, and they were cutting the lawn, so that prohibited me from doing the broadcast here, or our lesson here. And now I come here in this big field. You can't see most of it is, it's so neatly trimmed, and it's well taken care of. But nature has this stability in it that shows the handiwork of God. Like it says in the Psalms, that day unto day uttereth speech. It tells a story if we're going to take the time to look at it and look for it. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. You see, the only thing that's really out of order in this universe is man, humanity. And so I always look to God, and I look to law, principle, that are guiding the laws of the universe, so-called, laws of physics, astrophysics, astronomy. And then we can come down here to this earth and look at the laws that guide nature and flora, fauna, botany, and so on. And there's principles. All of these are principles and laws. One of the amazing things when I look at nature like this, obviously man, some men literally take care of the grass here and some of the other parts, but nobody takes care of these trees that I'm looking at, and they're pretty tall. But God. Birds have their home. It's where they live. Squirrels and so on. So for us, we have to purposely look for those silver linings. We have to look for those bright spots in the world and in the universe, because as I've mentioned, when it comes to anxiety and it comes to depression, mental health disorders, we have a tendency to concentrate on the symptoms. We have a tendency to concentrate on what is going wrong, and I got a bit of a smile on my face because today I had a rough start. I won't go through the details, doesn't really matter. But the final blow, right before I came here to talk to you, is I was trying to eat a small peanut butter sandwich, and it's natural peanut butter, and it's squeezing out the sides. And if you've ever had natural peanut butter, it's you got to mix it really well. It's pretty oily, and boy, I tell you, it's just, I got my lease on my car, I don't even have 1,000 miles on it yet, and it's getting on the fabric, and I'm starting to lose my temper. Then I think to myself, okay, well, what good is this going to do? And of course the answer is nothing. And then I thought about, well, I'll be here in a few minutes, I'll be at my spot, and I'll be talking to you. And I began to brighten up a bit. Honestly, I'm just like you. I'm a man, I'm a human being. I have my moments, frustrations, irritations, times when I want to throw in the towel, and that may sound strange to you, but it's the truth. There's times I want to quit ministry. I don't want to be responsible. All right. Now this is a bit of a confession, which is only saying one thing. I'm just a regular person, a regular guy that happens to have experience in both the Bible, mental health, and a couple of other things that I'm fairly proficient at. Other than that, we're all the same. And that's one thing I've learned in life over the years. No matter where you go, no matter what the ethnicity of a person, the color of their skin, and so on, we're all basically the same. Well, first of all, in breaking God's laws, we're identical. All have sinned, all, and fallen short of the glory of God. But we're also identical in the basic desire of life, which is to be loved and appreciated. Probably 90% of problems in marriage is this whole, I'll call it separation, isolation in the spirit from each other. Because, I want you to understand me, and you want me to understand you, and I'm not patient at the moment, and here we go. It's a basic need of all of us to know that somebody really cares, and to know that we're loved. I think, though, in truthfulness, it's difficult, it was for me, to appreciate the love of God until I can, A, accept it by faith, and then B, reason my way through. Let me give you an illustration. Two men, well, it could be two women, two people cut themselves. Let's make it a small cut on the hand. Right there. One is righteous and one is wicked. But you'll notice, and this is, again, common knowledge. The body will go right to healing both the righteous person and the wicked person. The body is always working for you, and I told you that this week, and I want you to keep that in mind. The body is not working against you. I get muscle discomfort, and mainly it's because I'm sitting a lot like this, either on my phone doing work, studying, the computer. So I spend a lot of hours in this position, and my body, well, anybody's physical body doesn't like that. The body doesn't like to be held in one place for too long. Then the muscles get stiff, and if you're at my age, they get stiff. In the morning, I'm like the Tin Man, at least until I get my coffee, then get over to my workout, and I always have stretching in my workouts. And then I start to pick up, and I start to feel better. But my point is that the goodness of God can be seen if you take the time to look for it. Stick with that illustration for a while. Think about it. The unrighteous man, well, the righteous man's over here, and the unrighteous man, the wicked man's over here. And they both cut themselves with an incidental tiny cut. And right away, both physical bodies go to work for good. Now, don't get me wrong. The Bible is very clear that the ultimate end of unrighteousness is not heaven, not good. In the meantime, God continues to present His goodness to us, that we can reason correctly and deal with I'm using this word a lot today, deal with our miseries a bit easier. And as I have shared with you this week, especially sharing the story of the woman with schizophrenia, cure. Right? That's the ultimate goal of these lessons, is to get a cure for you. I've obtained one. My friend Debbie has obtained one, and quite a few people that I know, and some of whom I've discipled and whom I've taught. So let me go on with this idea of looking for the good. Have you ever considered, because I have you ever considered what your nervous symptoms that are so, dramatic and terrible, have you ever considered that they might actually be working a good in you? Now, again, so that I'm not misunderstood, I'm not saying symptoms are good, and I'm not saying suffering is good. I'm simply saying that it can produce good. Like my example of going on a long run, or one of my daily runs. And one day I just realized I'm always running past everything, and that's in the woods now, and never taking the time to really look at it. 55 years ago. and decided one day I'm just going to stop and look at the beauty of God. See, for years I had ran past all of that and never really took notice of the beauty that was right there all the time, but I just kept literally running past it, right? And my question to you is, have you ever taken the time to say, gee, can this panic attack actually produce good? Understanding that I'm not saying panic is good and panic attacks are good. I'm just saying, have you ever said that this could be working for good? Think about it. My guess is that I'm going to say all of you. All right? I'm going to go way out on the limb here and say all of you watching have never thought about that. And there's going to be an exception, I know, here or there. We don't have a tendency to think in that vein, but we have to start. Let me say it more specifically. You have to start, because I've trained myself to do this when I'm in some type of pain, physical, emotional, whatever. The first question that I ask myself is, what is the lesson that I'm supposed to be learning? Now let me just stretch this out a little bit. If I'm in physical pain, obviously there's a cause. So it could be as simple as it is at this stage of my life, as my muscles are just tight. Not very deep, not very difficult to figure out. The good in that, well, I don't know, it's kind of a simple one. I mean, you want to get rid of it, so you stretch. Now I've built up a habit, which I've had all my life, of stretching my muscles. All right, kind of a silly example, but when we transfer back over to something much more, I don't want to use the word dramatic, something much more of concern to you, your symptoms, getting rid of them, try to see, what is there any good in this? Number one, you have symptoms. If it's not from some type of organic cause, something that happened to you and it developed nervous symptoms. You have nervous symptoms because you were born with a nervous system that's a bit more sensitive than the average individual. Well, we say, well, I don't want that. And I think years ago, many years ago, I would have agreed with you, because my simple way of thinking, which was naive at the time, you just want relief. But I can tell you that we actually need more sensitive people in the world. We need people who can feel, like for instance, why am I even doing this broadcast? It's because even though I don't know you, and some of you have already begun, we're getting a bit of a relationship together, or we're getting it going, and I may never meet you. Chances are I'm not ever going to meet you. Why am I doing this broadcast? Because I understand what you're going through. Why? Because I've been there. And I told you that symptoms have a habit of coming back, and from time to time I still experience some of these things I'm talking to you about, and I have to apply these lessons to myself. That now makes me even more sensitive to people like you, especially when I reflect back on the fact that, number one, I had no one to help me throughout my life, in this area, I mean, except God himself. So I'm grateful for that. That's the good of it for me. The good of it for me is that I've been taught by God himself in these areas. Of course, I read a lot of books, spent thousands of hours in the Bible, but there's a good in that for me. But the other good, second one, is that I started a broadcast because I'm concerned about you and I don't even know you. That's what we call altruism. I don't mean to sound like I'm comparing myself with other broadcasters, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing, but it's not really what I'm trying to convey. Hey, look at me, I'm a great guy, the rest of them, no. I'm not trying to say that. However, if you look at most YouTube channels, somebody's looking to get monetized, which is not wrong, looking to make that either a second career or whatever, and that's not wrong either. It's not wrong. I don't know there'll ever come a time that I may do it. I don't know, but it's not my motive now. It's not why I'm on. So, people go on and do these channels. I got to say, I think there's a ton of people out there that teach things, all kinds of things, strictly for the good of other people. I really do. I've watched a number of YouTube videos on a lot of subjects, and I think there's people out there doing it for your benefit. But my point is that, let me go back to what I started with. My point is, why am I doing this? Why am I taking the time every day, 25 minutes or so, to speak with you? And I don't even know you. I'm probably never going to meet you. It's because I do care about you, and I want to see you free from your symptoms. So I'm saying that to point out what we read in Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for the good of them that love God, and to those who are the called according to his foreknowledge. We know that all things work together for the good of them that love God, and to those that are called according to his purpose. I should accent that there. According to his purpose. But anyway, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't suffered in the past. I wouldn't be here talking to you. And for those of you who are writing to me saying that these teachings are really helping you, well, there's the good of my suffering for you. But I told you it did good for me as well. So it's kind of just I'll call it an odd thought, if you like, because you're right now very interested in getting an answer, and you don't want to hear about what's the goodness, let's just get rid of it. Well, think of it this way also. This is a little technique that I developed on my own. I use my symptoms whenever they arrive. They come less and less now, but as a type of gauge. And in my case, mostly I get tense from rushing. I mean, I'm trying to pack so much into this much time, when really, it's, as the saying goes, less is more. And many times I'll say, you know what, you're starting to get tense in the neck, tension, stomach may start hurting me. And by the way, that's a clear indication to me that I'm overdoing things. I had to practice my own lessons last night as well. And my mind was just going so much with so many things on it. I didn't sleep as well as I would have preferred, but I had these habits of practicing, and so I still get enough rest in to get up in the morning. But even when I get up in the morning, I still didn't feel, Well, you know what that's telling me? It's telling me it's time to start slowing. I'm a drummer, you know that. I told you that. I play guitar and sing as well, but that's the time. That's just telling me that the tempo is too fast. It's slow, or the operative expression people use, is slow your roll. When you're in a drum line, you can't be out of sync. Everybody's got to be at the exact same metronomic speed. And this is what I do. I use it as a barometer. I use my symptoms as a barometer that are telling me, okay, you're going too fast, trying to rush in, accomplish too much in too little time, and so on. See, there's another little good thing, because when your symptoms are gone, that I hope you try it out. That little bit of advice that came out of my own mind has greatly helped me to say, you got to slow down, because you're starting to get tense. I can feel it. All right, the idea here today is that if you look for the good, you'll find it. And where all of this is pointing you is this. If you start looking for the good and concentrating on it, you're paying less attention to your troubles. And in an odd way, as you're paying attention to what good comes out of your troubles, you're not paying attention to the troubles, and the ones that are related to symptoms, they start disappearing. And once that is gone, you're still able, because you've built up a habit of looking for the good. And believe me, there's still a lot of good to be found in this world. Why? Because God is. And He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. God is still around. Thank God for God. And He's still in control. All we got to do is look for Him. Let me pray for you. Father, I do pray today once again for my friends who have been watching, that this lesson will take root. Look for the good. Accent the good while they're working on the other techniques that I share with them and the other principles that I share with them. And most of all, give them peace today, serenity, and deliverance from all their evils. I pray that in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Well, today is Friday, and what is August the 21st. Hopefully, God willing, I'll get up one of my stories of my life broadcast tomorrow. And then Sunday, I'll be in the pulpit preaching another message on encouraging words for discouraging days. So you can find me on the other channel in the pulpit, Time for Truth Ministries. Hopefully I'll get stories of my life up for you tomorrow, God willing. And if not, I will see you on Monday. Remember, if you want to stay with me for these lessons, subscribe, because I see these subscriptions are going up a little bit every day, every week. And by the way, just one thing, this is actually for me more than it is for you. I've noticed, we have a small subscribership, right? 111 people we got now, 112, whatever it is. But we may get 50 or 80 views. That means that we're up in the 80 percentile of people actually who subscribed are actually watching this broadcast. And I did the math on some other people who have 150 and 200,000 and all that, and I saw the views. Though it's in the thousands, it's still a small percentage of the actual subscribers, which means we're actually building up a group here, even though we can't see each other. We're building up a group. We're in a class, and if we just pray for each other, well, we'll do all right. Anyway, I just threw that in. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in these lessons. Hit the notification button, and God willing, I'll see you tomorrow. And if not, I'll see you Sunday or on Monday. God bless. Thanks for being with me.